Hello model railroaders, it's Dave. Welcome back to the layout. It's been a little bit, but I've finally been able to make some progress enough to give you an update. First off the top is going to be how I resolved this bit of track here between this frog that was shorting that I showed on the previous video. Now all I did was essentially where the pick is covering, I just covered that with clear nail polish, and that is sufficient. Now the one rail is slightly taller than the other, so the flange, let me roll the cleaning car a little closer, so the flange on the metal wheels were bridging the two rails and causing the short to occur. So let me just dial up the speed on the track cleaning motor so that you can hear it. Now if you recall in the last video, as I moved this across the frog, it would short out. And as you can see now, the motor is not. Let me just move that back. Now the wheels may be a little dirty, but as you can see, as the back set approaches that it is now not shorting out on that rail. So I took the easy way out in just covering both rails about up to there with the or I guess a brush width of the nail polish brush, just to cover both rails, so that a little bit more rail coverage off the frog wasn't going to cause a problem. And as you saw, if the cleaning car can keep in contact with one truck being the one rail and the other truck being the opposite rail, and it's not bridging over, then that is an easy enough solution. And if it occurs again, I just put another little bit on. What I didn't want to do is get in there with a file and start scratching away at the track and really deep scratching it so that it would collect gunk in those scratch crevices. So hopefully that solution is worthwhile to those of you that are watching, and you can keep that in mind when you have a similar issue. Now on I'll convey that on a friend's layout, he had a reversing loop. He's running HO, and he actually took a Dremel and cut the track, but he found that he would be getting the reversing loop power board. It would be the servo, or the solenoid I should say, would be going click 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 as his train would go over. So we got looking at it, and the solution there was we took a bit of a plastic or wooden tie, I can't remember which it was at this point, and we just cut it down and stuck it in between the joint and the rail, and just put a little CA glue on either side at the bottom to glue it to whatever substrate his track was on. Probably it was cork. It's a few years ago now, and then since that point he's not had that issue, because what was happening in the gap, the metal wheels on his cars were dropping into the gap and joining both sides of the rail across the joint. Now, as soon as we brought the level up, the wheel would go onto the wood instead of dropping into the gap, and then come out of the gap from the wood onto the next rail, which was already changed to the same polarity by the automatic whatever that module is called that I'm forgetting the name of. Now let's give you a little update of what I've accomplished so far. So I'll just move you around here, and as you can see, there's a little bit of ballast stuck to the, let me get that out of my hand and properly grab hold of the camera. There's a little bit of ballast now in all the track that I laid down on the foam, wherever, and here's a good section where there's nothing, but then where there's the two-way tape that's holding the track down, that there's ballast in there. So I've been successfully able to do that, though I'm not really thrilled about the Woodland Scenic's ballast. As you can see, I've vacuumed a couple of times, and this stuff is just doesn't want to be picked up by the vacuum. I've even used the track cleaning car, and I'm curious because I've been hearing it popping along inside the car. So let's bring the car over here. That way if I spill anything, it's not back onto the track. And let's see what it acquired. Now I had cleaned it out, so there is a little bit of lint in there that you can see. And yeah, that's all the ballast that's in there that this cleaning car has sucked up off of the two-way tape. Now I'm going to show you, I used the mini attachments for vacuums. Now I paid $15 for this, and I'll try and get a non-glarish look. So it comes with an adapter and some brushes that you can see. And here's what I ended up having to do to make it work on my vacuum. So there's the head that dials down. You've got a hole, an adjuster here. Depending on how great the suction of your vacuum is, you can open it up to let more air through and decrease the vacuum at the tip, or dial it down so that it's not as, or it's stronger for a weaker vacuum. It comes with an adapter that fits into here. Let me see if I can wiggle it out one-handed. Nope, I got it stuck in there too tight. Comes in with an adapter. Now the vacuum that I'm going to show you, I ended up having to use a piece of tubing to make an adapter because it was the identical size. It was too loose for this piece, but it wouldn't merge with this adapter, so I just went with a piece of tubing, and that worked for me. So all I did was I made a trap, and it's just a plastic tub which I drilled a couple holes in to take some half-inch fittings, and one's the running to the vacuum, which is the brass one, and the steel hose barb runs down to the little head that came out of that pack. So I was able to vacuum up all of the Woodland Scenic's ballast that I just flooded the track, and then used a paintbrush to tap it into the adhere to the two-way tape that was between the ties. Now I will show you this. that the Woodland Scenics contains tree nut byproducts. Now, out of curiosity, it's like, okay, well, it's not real rock. It is very light, so all right. What I believe it is, and I read it somewhere or on somebody's YouTube, which I can't exactly recall, but their ballast is dyed walnut shell. So now I know you can use walnut shell instead of sand for abrasive blasting or sandblasting. You just use walnut shell in the place of the sand because it is less harsh on whatever you're trying to scour with it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but my experience with it wasn't what I would term as enthusiastic to use the product again. I found that to try and brush it, it kind of went all over the place. It was easily flicked, and it was holding a bit of a static charge and was very difficult to move. Like even there's some bits, like even right here, I've gone over this multiple times with a vacuum, yet that little piece was still stuck to the foam. And it just had static charge, and the vacuum velocity wouldn't pick it up. But at the moment anyway, at least everything is ballasted down, so I don't have to worry about the 2A tape picking up any lint or anything else that may be picked up into the drive gears, because as you may remember, we do have a cat, though, who has not been climbing on the layout recently, but there is cat hair floating around because you can't get rid of it. So this is a little vacuum, just a little handheld vacuum I've been using, and I just used a piece of the tube. I use this for vacuuming the track if I want to do it by hand, because I can reach all the way into the layout, and because it's rubber or a plastic, I guess it's not a hard plastic, but it is a type of plastic tubing. I don't know what kind it is, but it won't scratch up or gouge out any paint like the hard handle would, and it gives a little more pointed suction running across the top of the rails than, say, the brush stuck to the end. So there we go. That aspect is now done. So plan for the weekend is to run the cleaning car and around the whole layout to get me back into train running mode, and then it's just a case of seeing what I'm going to dive into next. That was on the list that I talked about in a previous video, whether it be dealing with putting the zoning out and taking the DB150 there and making that a slave unit to run the top section, or whether it be to starting to dive into here and try and work on some of this track layout for the logging and the oil refinery. So, which it's close enough, I'll probably try and do it without removing the sections, but I'd have to decide whether I'm going to put cork down, and if I do use cork, I need to go buy some, money permitting, and if not, then I need to just transition down, and then I can lay it directly down on the plywood and not really worry about it because it is a siding after all. Similar to what I did with the on the foam. So that's where I'm at the moment. So hopefully you'll enjoy the holidays that are coming up and not be too stressed with all the hectic and panic of either having family over or going to visit family, and all being well. Hopefully I'll be able to put another couple videos out before the end of the year. And but if not, I wish you happy holidays, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye for now.